So, Professor Philip Kotler met me in Moscow for the first time in 1998. About what? Recent crisis. He does not know anything about the recent crisis. I know a little bit because the worst crisis in the country. So, in the press conference, and you answer on the question, don't think, don't worry. And this is what Chinese CEO said. Crisis is raging, raging and dangerous and opportunity. I got the invitation to Moscow because they want to know what happened in Indonesia. Indonesia from social economic crisis becoming social crisis and finally becoming political crisis. And then in the middle of the conversation, last because nobody spoke English at that time. Is that us? This is a very luxurious. And you know my name, Professor Philip. He just went to the library of American University this morning. And my staff just huge money. This is Global Market Management by Warren Higgins. This is the most famous textbook in the world. He died already. But he included my model for the first time. And Philip Kotler used this in teaching global marketing in and you know, well, I see you. This actually doing what? Just like but I'm writing. Not only praying, but praying and working very hard. Yeah. And then finally, to make it short, he asked me to write together vision crisis. Only 5 languages. Now more than 20 always. That's why journalism is trusting us so much. It's very easy now. Every model that I propose, yes. Now we offer the second edition of the edition just first edition. English is so much. First edition is good at but second edition and the second model. December next June and December 1 under that time. And next year, this year, and one, and marketing 6.2, and in New York, first quarter. And I'm 76 this year, still working work. And until 2031. This year, today is 1931. So we want to work with me until 2031. Of 2031. 100 years. How can? I'm diabetic for 37 years. This American and Indonesian are different. Our food is different, our happiness is different, our education is different. I promise you this. Marketing 6.2, 7.2, and 8.2 will be finished. And EM1, EM2, and EM3. Yeah, so yeah. Please give back to Philip Kotler. I will continue. Yeah. Kotler will be ready. Yeah. So tell me when I have to stop first. So you don't care. I don't care about this one, but I'm interested in what Elon Musk talk. Trust GDP is much more important than GDP.
Please give a big round of applause for the father of modern philosophy and thought, Professor Philip Kotler.
And this one, USA. Now China is getting the challenge.
Will that be connected with the diversity?
You have to westernized. Including I sent my son and my daughter to US in high school and get a degree, master degree. Now I want my grandson to China. Speak that English is English is English. Whether you want or not is another matter. But now I don't agree that China will be dominated with the West. Good things from West and China. It's good for US. Yes, China. And Indonesia, the president is very smart. We have been friends with this one and been friends with this one. We want to be different. And not easy to be different. Not easy. This is my assistant. That's and they have not also want to be westernized also. Philip Kotler is not westernized. He's American, but he is very, very good. He respects all religion, all works and whatsoever. So China now.
Thank you, Professor Herman, for sharing your insightful story and our future predictions. Now I'm inviting our Honorable Professor Dr. for delivering his speech.
Here we have that the smart minister about which I think Mr. Johnson and also our foreign guest, Professor Ramon Katajawa, and other distinguished guests. My job is just introducing Mr. Philip Kotler here. So I have must tell Philip Kotler, the marking group, and obviously my group. Kotler, the eldest of the three sons of his Ukraine-Russian origin parents. Kotler born in Chicago on May 27, 1931. He studied at DePaul University for 2 years and accepted without a bachelor's degree into master's program at the University of Chicago. In that sense, we can say Mr. Kotler he never got his bachelor's degree, and it is not possible to get this bachelor's degree from him. Completed his PhD at MIT in 1956 and earned both in economics. He studied under the Nobel laureate in economics science, Milton Friedman, Paul Samuelson, and Robert Soff. He did a year postdoctoral work in mathematics at Harvard University in 1960 and also behavioral science in University of Chicago in 1961. In 1967, Kotler published Marketing Management, Analysis, Planning, and Control. Now, it is 15th edition and world's most widely adopted textbook in the Graduate School of Business. On December 9, 1996, the Financial Times cited marketing management as one of the 50 greatest business of all time. Kotler, the author and author of over 166 published articles and e-books. Kotler has received 22 honorary degrees from almost all the prestigious institutions and universities of the world. Kotler has done more than any other writer or scholar to promote the importance of marketing. The spelling from peripheral activity and the important job of production. He has brought in the concept of marketing from more selling to the general process of communication and message that shown how marketing can be extended, applied to studies and non-profit and non-business situations. But to popularize the topic as such as SPP, social marketing, e-marketing, branding, marketing of art, sales marketing, as well as challenges facing capitalism, democracy, and government. In 1920, Dr. was voted all-time best guru in management business. He is the most influential business writer in the world. Doctor's contributions are described in at least one subject in every book written and written the guru of business and management. He continues to be an influential figure in the marketing industry and sought after consultant and speaker around the world. And today is the 92nd birthday of Mr. Philip Kotler. We are gathered here in this occasion to wish him happy birthday to Mr. Philip Kotler. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor sir, for introducing Philip Kotler, although we all of us know him as well. And in the first slide of Professor Harmon, he was showing how artificial intelligence robots are actually changing the rest of the world. So if you notice, for the last 10 years, you can see American-based Boston Dynamics, then making industrial robots from England, ABB robots. Already, Bangladeshi company Watson introduced ABB robots in their factory in Chandra. I traveled there. And German-based company Kuka robots. Kuka robots are actually making all the BMW and Mercedes. So robots are coming, and like Robot Sophia, all of you know Robot Sophia, and more updated version of Robot Sophia is Amica. Robot Amica has more sophistication, and this type of hands-on robotics is making Robot Sophia. So future will be led by robots, AI, and hence marketing. Just look around in our community and across the world, you can see. In future, all of the companies will be a tech company. Number one thing, remember, all of the companies will be tech company, and they will digitally transform them to save their business, to save the other thing. They will introduce cybersecurity, and they will lead smart citizens. So, other than waiting you, I'm just inviting the man who is actually our focus today, Professor Philip Kotler. So he'll be joining from USA, and it's early morning there, I should say. Yeah. So welcoming Philip Kotler in the screen, and then let's hear what he says, and we will wish him a very auspicious birthday to him.
This is Philip Kotler, and I am very happy to have this opportunity to share my own experiences and conclusions about where marketing is going. Marketing is definitely changing, but where is it going? This first picture you see shows three recent books of mine that people have been reading. The first one, 5.0, is really about the new digital revolution in marketing. The second book, called Age to Age Marketing, is about human to human marketing. We must always remember that people talking to people is what the essence of marketing is about. Each party trying to take value from the other party. And the third book was just published called Entrepreneurial Marketing. And it makes a distinction between professional marketing and the need also for entrepreneurial marketing. And I'll say more about that. So about this talk, I see it as a great opportunity for me to speak at your gathering about where business and marketing are going. My view of how marketing is changing is a personal view, but I hope it will be an insightful view. I will comment on four things. First, what might the world look like that we are moving toward? Two, what will be the purpose and contribution? Three, what will be the purpose and contribution of marketing? And four, what will be the role of government? So starting with the big picture, the biggest picture, what might the world look like? I might say that it's pretentious for anyone to predict the future. I can only quote the great Mahatma Gandhi, who said, the future's going to depend on what we do in the present. Our own choices. Management father said the same thing. The best way to predict the future is to create it. So the questions that come up about the future of the world are such as, will it be a world of abundance or of scarcity? Or to go further, maybe it will be a world where there is abundance in some parts of the world and continued scarcity in other parts, which we have now. And perhaps we can get more of the world abundant. Another question is, will it be a world of peace or war? And of course, we are hoping that we will finally learn the lesson of nature and everything else, that peace is so priceless, we must avoid wars whenever we can. And third, will it be a world of opportunity or one of dread and suffering? And let's make it a world of opportunity for all. Now, one final remark about the world was Woody Allen's remark. I must say it's kind of gloomy. One path leads to despair and utter hopelessness. The other to total extinction. Let us pray that we have the wisdom to choose correctly. Well, he only gave us two forks in the road, both of which are despairing. We have a broader picture of that. See my next slide. And this is called the problem of the fork in the road. It came from really the great futurist, so Buckminster Fuller, in his writing. And he said there were two paths. Utopia, which is the one we all want to take as the path, or oblivion. Now, I want to modify that. I'm going to make three paths. We're going to start with oblivion and where we are. We are where the X is shown. We're moving toward oblivion. In other words, the dying of the planet. We're not there yet. We haven't done enough to kill the planet. You see a dot following the X, do not go past that point of no return. Once we do, it's oblivion. We should backtrack. And in backtracking, we either slowly cut the fossil fuel business, which is threatening the life of the planet, or we even leap faster somehow to what is a mode called survival, where we are certainly not going to have the planet heat up to such a point that life is not possible on the planet. And then we would have a chance for utopia. So let's work on that for this fest. Let's move on. I've done some work with my friend Christian Dhaka, identifying the worst problems of the world. And I've identified 7 problems, and we call them the wicked 7. One of them is the death of nature. We've been very abusive of plants and animals and nature. And we can say more about that in the book that we are publishing soon called The Wicked 7 Problems. In which case we take each problem, show the damage that's been done, and what can be done to save the situation. You'll notice inequality is a wicked problem, and it's always been with us. What can we do about it? And behind that and underlying that is hate and conflict. Why do we have so much hate and conflict? And then there's a problem of power and corruption, and how power leads to corruption often. And so much of it is happening. We have to have better discipline. And then what is happening to the world of work and technology? Are we going to run that world, or is it going to run us? Are robots going to be our partners or our bosses? And with the problems that come up with health and livelihood, much can be said there, and we will say it. And then finally, the problem of how much population size is the right size for the world and for different nations, and how is population affected by migration. So this is not a talk now about the wicked problems, only to say that they lurk behind our talk as we move forward. Now, we could be optimistic and say the world will be one of innovation. We're going to have flying cars, self-cleaning clothes, delicious and healthy, low-calorie processed food, and robot butlers cleaning our homes, and decriminalization centers that will help criminals reform, peacemaking centers, sociability centers so people aren't lonely and they meet other people, and maybe a handful of utopian cities which we can admire and try to copy in our own cities. That's an optimistic look for the future. So let's move now to business. And we recognize there are 4 big forces changing everything, namely new technologies, the fact that countries deal with other countries in trade and in messaging, and there's globalization, and that the physical environment is strong, but often we abuse it, and sustainability and other questions have arisen. And then the whole force of social responsibility toward other people, toward nature, and so on. Now, all of this in the context of changing consumer capabilities. Today's consumer is much more sophisticated than past consumers. But companies are more sophisticated. And there's new competitive capabilities, and even the government is playing a more active role in many places. So, moving on, I'd like to share my view of the early history of business and how it evolved to today's business. Because going back in time, we saw companies, small ones, smartly, and they knew how to make something, how to market those things. But you know, it was a world of shortages, so anything that was made, it produced a lineup of people ready to buy those things. We say that's a state of undersupply. Undersupply means anyone who makes anything can sell it because there's not enough to go around. However, we've moved over time into a world of oversupply, where there are many competitors making more things than we can actually afford with the level of pay and earnings that average people have. So we're in a world of oversupply, and so these companies have to learn something new, not just to make more product, but how to market what they make and make a living, a good margin in what they are selling. So companies turn to advertising agencies to learn marketing. And what they really learned was a distorted view of marketing, as if the whole thing is about an ad, a powerful ad, getting someone suddenly to know about a product, feel good about that product and buy it. So marketing turns out to be much more than just advertising. And it meant that there was a company had to touch at least four things in what we call their marketing mix. Marketing was more than just promotion and advertising. So the original marketing tools were the 4 Ps. And the coincidence that they all use the letter P at the beginning. Product, price, place, and promotion. Now I, in my 16th edition of marketing management, changed this to a 7 set of tools, not a 4 set of tools. And they are, again, product, which is one of them, but we want to separate service out and make it as important as the product, so we give that enough attention. Now, price was always in the 4 Ps, but you know, you set a price, but you do a lot of things to move your product beyond that price, because if it's not moving, you want to give additional incentives. You want to say a 20% discount if you buy today, or 2 for the price of 1. So the whole field of incentives should be separated from the setting of the normal price. And then we want to not use the word promotion, but the word communication, and establish a very good communicating system. And a very good distribution system covering many channels that can carry our product to the customers. And then I want the word brand to be worked on and built all the time and protected all the time. So if a company works with these 7 ideas, they will have a very good plan, hopefully. And the companies will start with, of course, what we call STP, a segmentation, targeting, and positioning. In other words, probably there's only a limited number of people who have any interest in your offering. What segment of need do you want to serve? Who do you want to serve? Do you want to serve young people and their wish to drink something, whether it's a Coke, or whether it's orange juice, or a alcoholic drink? Who's your segment? So you can target that group better and position what you're offering in a more meaningful way. Your value, you can state a value proposition of what the user will get from the product. That's position. And then we move to a digital world, from an analog world to a digital world. And we're increasingly recognizing a change. In the past, there were only 2 groups that the company paid attention to: customers and investors. In other words, know your customer so well that they will buy enough of your product so that profits are made, which go to the investors only. But that has been changing from a shareholder view of the company, that is, the company maximizes the wealth of the shareholders, to a stakeholder view of the company, that there's 6 or 7 groups that have made the success of that company, and rewards should be proportional to their contributions. And that is gaining very much, this whole view of serving the stakeholders of the company and rewarding. And then companies are now becoming AI oriented, and we believe that artificial intelligence offers many, many new opportunities, and that companies are getting very analytical in approaching the market and trying to understand the market behavior. Okay, so wrapping this up, the world is changing at a fast rate. It's destroying old businesses that did not adjust, and it's forming new big companies all the time. And businesses therefore need to change with changing market opportunities. However, too many companies do not change. They might not recognize changes or have the capability to change. Too many managers focus on existing procedures and bureaucracy. In other words, they are professional people running the company, but that's not enough. You need to also be entrepreneurial. And I'll make more of that point about the difference between being a company with professional marketers, and I say that is not enough. They must also have entrepreneurial marketers, and I'll say more about that. So let's ask 2 things. One is, what are the business characteristics in the post-COVID world? And then we'll turn to what are the customer characteristics. The first with business. I think you will agree with the following. More companies are vulnerable to disruptors. Disruptors come along with either a lower price for the same product, or a product with more features than the present firms are offering. So disruption is something every company has to worry about being replaced by a better offer in some way, either lower cost or more value created. So you got to list as a company, ask your people to sense what the possible disruptors might be, because the message becomes this: if you're going to be disrupted, you should do the disruption to yourself before the others do it. Another thing, more companies collect detailed consumer data, and they apply what we call machine learning to produce actionable marketing insights. That's why you take all this data that you've collected to get a better understanding of what prompts a customer to decide on your brand instead of the other brand. And we're making progress in getting insights that way. Third, more startups will emerge to do direct-to-consumer marketing. We call it sometimes DCM, where some startup firm decides that there are consumers having a need that is not supplied well by the existing shops or online services, whatever. And in fact, the invention of online made it possible for startup firms to get the names of consumers who have a certain need, and these startups can sell and place their offers directly to consumers who do not have to go to a shop buying a standard product, but who will buy their new startup product. So this is challenging store-based marketers. And as a result, online sales are growing faster than in-store sales. Is it possible that we won't need stores in the future? because everything could be ordered for direct delivery to the customer. We'll talk about that. Brand building requires more than traditional marketing tools. Yes, advertising is a very big input in brand building, but there's much more involved in brand building than just advertising. Sales growth will depend on smart online behavioral targeting, where you know who you want to reach and how to reach them. And companies will move to brand activism that the brand might even be richer to both the employees and customers and the public, because it takes a stand on something the public cares about. Of course, a company could never get involved with any cause and just sell what it makes. But more companies are now believing that taking some concern about the state of the world might be in their advantage. And we believe that companies will do increasingly more in-house advertising and promotion, and leave it to the advertising agencies to do those things they can't do. In other words, companies will find out there are some parts of preparing a good advertising campaign that they can handle themselves, and then use from the ad agencies and promoters what they can't make up in their own company. Let's move on. You know, businesses will have to change their purpose. This, you know, profitability has been the historical purpose of a company. Their job is to keep building the demand for their products and services. Hopefully, that there will be endless economic growth and job creation. The new issue is this: industrialization increases all the time, and in doing that, it produces more carbon than the world that is warming the planet. And that means people in the worst parts of the world that are near the equator will find breathing to be impossible. They will flee. They will put pressure on Europe and other places where they can at least avoid this heat and cause great problems in the world. So we should do our best to neutralize industrialization by moving from fossil fuels, which is the basis of our energy system, to non-fossil fuels, to wind and solar energy and water energy and so on, in which case we would delay and maybe prevent the warming of the planet. So now this means that it's not enough to just pursue profitability. Every decent firm will also try to pursue sustainability along with profitability. And in fact, that calls upon the firm the job of reshaping the consumption of products and the design of products in the interest of saving the planet. I'm not saying that we're going to move to degrowth as a major theme. In other words, the degrowth of population, the degrowth of bigger economies. No, it could be just maybe about slower growth, more rational growth of the world economy. And does sustainability impact profits negatively? I would argue the opposite, that the firms that have taken to heart real sustainability have learned so many things about waste and how to use and reuse the same resources again and again. And those firms are practicing what we call circularity. They are letting resources be used again and again. We say recover, reuse, and recycle existing products and resources. Use water more carefully. Minimize the use of packaging, and especially reduce the use of plastics, use more efficient lighting, heating, and air conditioning, and minimize your driving and flying because it's always producing carbon. So that's a new purpose. At least it adds sustainability to profitability in the hands of business. By the way, in terms of taking some cause that your company might believe in, we have evidence of many companies that have identified a cause. Avon is a company which sells cosmetics and so on to many, many women. Know that women are concerned with the terrible problem of breast cancer and want to support all the research that can be done to minimize this kind of event happening to any woman. And they've raised millions and millions of dollars. And the women who shop at Avon know that and appreciate that cause. I won't comment on the others, but we have written books that mention many of the causes and how they work out. But moving on, let me say that a company today has 3 styles of marketing. Remember, the purpose of marketing is to create real value. Talking about how to create value for others. Marketing 1.0 is the old method where you use your mind to understand the customer. You think your customers, so you understand what customers are like, even without research. Your whole focus is on the product that you sell, whether it's an automobile or a refrigerator or a drink or something. And you're going to spend your time messaging the economic value of what you just made for customers because your aim is just profits. That's 1.0 marketing. 1.2 marketing comes more from the heart. You're caring for the customer. You value your employees and other people working with you for you. And you want to improve social progress for everyone. That's good. That's better than 1.0. And then there's 3.0, which some companies think, to them it's more than heart, it's spirit. And they are not only value driven, but values driven. They have a set of clear values. Among them is environment. And their goal is human happiness. So the question is, where's your company now? Is it a 1.0 or a 2.0 or 3.0 company? Where do you want your company to be? Now, if you're millennials, you probably want your company to be at least 2.0 if it's only 1.0 in its practice. And why? Because you feel more proud of your company for being caring of the job they're doing. And you would have to spell out the steps you would take to get the company to move from 1.0 to 2.0 or possibly to 3.0. A book that I find very useful to cite, because many of you have already used the book, and I think it's in the 2nd edition now. I wish I had written that book, written by 3 wonderful scholars, called Firms of Endearment, which is a fancy way to say companies that people love. Firms of Endearment. And the scholars studied companies and found 25 companies that consumers would say, I love that company. They would say, boy, if Coke disappeared, I don't know what I would do. I don't want to drink the other drinks. So in different ways, these were 25 companies. Apple was another company that people said, if Apple disappeared, I don't know what I'm going to do because I have a Mac and I love that company and its cell phones. So what they found out is all 25 companies that customers love were stakeholder driven, not shareholder driven, which I alluded to. And these firms of endearment were highly profitable and they outperformed the overall market's performance by a 9-to-1 ratio over a 10-year period. In other words, they outperformed all their competitors. And at these companies, employees were happier, more motivated, more loyal, more innovative. The suppliers were more profitable, and environment improved in all these communities. So, yeah, the evidence was that stakeholder capitalism is superior to shareholder capitalism. Now, the interesting thing is all 25 companies share the following 8 characteristics. First, they said they cared about all the stakeholders. Secondly, the executive salaries were high, but relatively modest in terms of some other companies which really pay so many more times what the average worker paid. Three, the management operated an open door policy. Yes, you can meet me if you have an idea. Don't worry that I'm the boss and you're 3 levels down. I'm even open to hearing from you if you have a great idea. And these companies paid good compensation with good benefits. Their employees were trained longer and the turnover was lower. Even in choosing workers, these companies wanted to choose people who were passionate about creating value for customers. And these companies view the suppliers as very important partners who collaborate on improving productivity and quality and lowering costs. And they believe that their corporate culture is their greatest asset and primary source of their competitive advantage. Now, finally, and this is something that will blow your mind, their marketing costs were much lower than their peer competitors, while customer satisfaction and retention was much higher. Wow! You mean to say that these companies don't have to spend as much? Why would that be? Well, clearly it's because most of the broadcasting is being done by who? By their satisfied customers, by word of mouth. These companies have created customers who become advocates of the firm and introducing ordinary conversations. Oh, if you're buying a car, you better look at car X, that's a great car. So much of the work is done without buying it. So we're beginning to realize that in spite of having advertising, in spite of having a sales force, most of the work of creating a strong brand is done by the customers who are so excited by the company that they broadcast for that company. But let's move forward. So that I said basically that marketing's role is to be professional cheerleaders in part. There's much more. And we don't want the marketers to be entrepreneurial in the sense of being visionaries, having a vision of what's possible, always spotting new opportunities, comfortable taking some and trying to build networks around their business that will continue to support the progress of the business. And that the aim of marketing is, of course, to sell the products, but in the broader way, it's to improve lives and the well-being of customers, employees, investors, and other stakeholders. Sometimes that's called servant leadership, that you can be proud of service to others because by performing good service, you're really serving yourself as well. So the role of marketing, let's look at it more closely. Marketing is clearly a driving force in an economy. First, it shapes the rate of economic growth. I would guess that an economy without marketers would grow slower. Secondly, marketing determines the mix of the society's products and services because not only do companies make what is needed, but they often visualize what would add value even if they were not these products were not in existence. I mean, Steve Jobs said he's not making this thing, he called it a cell phone, because people knew about it and asked for it. No, he wasn't beating it. He was offering something that when noticed by consumers, they will appreciate how much help that cell phone will be in conducting their own lives and affairs. So we sometimes say marketing is not only market driven, but maybe market driving. I'll say more about that shortly. Now, marketing can be run in a society in two ways. The society, like the American society, might say companies are free to determine their products, prices, places, and promotion as they wish. Free. That's called the free state of marketing with very little regulation and so on. Or the government may set a lot of rules to guide marketers to make the right decisions. The rules can be very restrictive or they can be very broad. I created the following rules that might guide marketing practice in society, and why not say products should create no harm, which means that we should have to look at cigarettes and so on and wonder whether we should allow them to be so promoted because they do cause heart attacks, cancer, and other bad things. So I think it's reasonable that the society makes a determination that certain products have to be eliminated because they create harm. Prices of basic needed products should not be excessive for low-income people. I mean, bread, everyone needs bread for survival, and if the prices of bread keeps going up, it puts such pressure on low-income people. So a good society will make sure that basic needed products by low-income people are affordable. Not only that these basic needed products are available to every location where there are low-income people. And the promotion should be truthful and not high pressure or all the time high pressure. It should be truthful and effective. And a brand should not attack other brands so much as focus on its own virtues. And one can develop a set of rules for a nation that's starting out to want to guide marketing practice. These would be some of the rules. But what is marketing today? Marketing has become applied economics. So that's its father, economics. But it's a mix also of social science and the economic theory and organizational theory. So that was what I set out to do in my 1967 book, Marketing Management, to make marketing based on these foundations. And it's a force that shapes our wants and lifestyles. And it undergoes continuous change. To show that, I use a story that happened. A CEO heard me give a talk and came up to me afterwards. And he had a copy of my book, but what book? The 1967 textbook that I wrote at that time called Marketing Management. And he says, I learned a lot from the book. I still use it. Would you sign it? I said to the CEO, are you still using the 1967 marketing? He says, yes, I look up things that happen and find it helpful. I said, marketing has changed so much since 67. In fact, I'm on my 16th edition. He says, are you trying to sell me another book? I said, yes, because if you want to know anything about brand equity or about digital marketing or things that really count today, you got to recognize that marketing is not the same as geometry. I could teach you geometry that was taught back 2,000 years ago, and there would be no changes in the subject. But marketing changes every period. In fact, we wrote a book called Marketing 4.0, then Marketing 5.0. We're now working on Marketing 6.0 because every few years, new things happen. Anyways, another thing about the future of marketing, buyers will be able to select the best brands without resorting to advertising or sales people. Increasingly, although marketing traditionally is about some advertising and salespeople, we know that the consumers are able to get so much information before or wanting any advertising or salespeople. Marketing success will depend mostly on smart pricing, strong branding, and owning down channels of distribution. Marketing creativity will be crucial in achieving marketing success. Innovate or die. Marketers will make more use of customer journey map personas in marketing and creating artificial personas to help the copywriters know who they're trying to reach. More content marketing and more use of influencers because in the digital age, there are some people who have thousands or maybe millions of followers. Boy, if you can get them to use our product visibly, then many of the followers want to be using what the people they like so much are using. And then marketers will use predictive analytics and machine learning to identify and convert best prospects. So what about government and all this? Remember I said there were 4 groups, government is one of them. And we can't answer the future. There are different systems. We could be in a system of unregulated free market competition, which was highly formed to be operated in for so many years. Some regulations, but mostly free market competition and capitalism. American stakeholder capitalism may get strong with regulations and social responsibilities. I think we're moving in that direction from free market capitalism. I happen to favor Nordic capitalism, which believes that certain areas should be public, available to the public in an affordable way. For example, free education, free college education, rather than section split. The family with 3 children, each facing a college education of $200,000 makes it almost impossible for the earnings of the person to afford that. Nordic capitalism, what's done in Norway, Sweden, Finland, Denmark, and Iceland, they charge more to the rich people in society, a higher income tax, and they have enough money to make college education freer or less expensive. And also the health, everyone is covered in their health needs at a much lower cost. Because more money is raised for these public sector needs. And then we have to worry about moving into a system where the authorities are more authoritarian and democracy melts into what is fascism. And people are told what books you can read and not read. And they're telling women that the women cannot make the choice of what to do with their bodies. That will have to be a government decision, that if they're pregnant, they're going to have to deliver on that pregnancy all the way, even if they were raped and things like that. So we have to be sure we're conserving the right government for carrying out our marketing. And I'm going to leave with this slide because I use it in the Human Age book. There's 3 types of bad marketing. Don't do unethical marketing. It'll backfire on you if you do. And don't do a lot of wasteful marketing, steps that you take that don't add up to anything. And then there's some of your marketing which is inane. It's kind of silly. You know, you're shouting the sales talks and all that. Is it working? New age stage marketing, doing people to people, good people, caring about other people, wanting both sides to be winners. Every transaction should produce two winners, the buyer and the seller. And so I want to leave you with this message. And I'm very serious about it. Within 5 years, and I'm talking about your company, if you're in the same business as you are in now, you're going to be out of business. Things are changing all the time. And by the way, it's not only profitability that you should be good at. If you don't add sustainability, you'll definitely be out of business in the next years. Thank you very much. I know I said a lot of things and I also took some notes, but I think marketing adds great value to any economy. And I try to describe some of the aspects that make your marketing great. Thank you very much.
You should close it down.
Thank you, Professor Philip Kotler, for your wonderful
Close it down. Okay, thank you, Professor, for the amazing insightful session. Surely we will take these learnings to enrich our future endeavors. We will now gather a momentous occasion as we celebrate Professor's 92nd birthday with the cake cutting ceremony. Can the volunteers please bring the cake in the front? I'd like to invite the guests to the stage for the cake cutting in ceremony. Mr. Somchal Vijay, PhD Executive Committee Member, Marketing Association of Thailand, and Mr. Shamim Ehsanul Haq, Assistant Professor, BRAC Business School, Mr. Kamsar, Vice President, International. Can you please bring the knife as well? Take a picture of the cake as well. Everyone please step aside.
Accept के दें accept बस
Now I will invite or request Mr. Shankar Vijay to come with us. Everyone, now what we do? Happy birthday. Okay. Let's take the cake behind and someone can pick it up and serve it to the guests. We are going to start the second session very quickly in 5 minutes. It's going to be a panel discussion, so it's going to be an interactive panel discussion. So if the students also have questions to ask them. So our topic today is how entrepreneurial marketing assets can help shape future smart cities. So entrepreneurial marketing is a topic that Mr. Philip Kotler has came up with. So maybe on the next few years, we are going to talk about or read about more entrepreneurial marketing. So currently now we more talk about societal marketing and how the marketing has a very strong impact, not only as a human being, but also as a society. But now, as entrepreneurship and the sustainability of the business has a very strong impact. And so why not merge the two ideas? Okay. So the book is very interesting, especially for the business students and as well as for the marketing students. That this is a must read because this is the future we are going to talk about. Okay. So for the panel discussion, we start now. So for the panel discussion, first I would like to invite Mr. Somchat B.C. Chechan, PhD, Executive Committee Member, Marketing Association of Thailand, to come on the stage. Please give them a big round of applause. Now I'd like to call Mr. Shamim Ehsanul Haq, Assistant Professor. Can we have the wireless mic on the table? Yes. So as I already mentioned the topic before, how entrepreneurial marketing assets can help to shape future smart citizens. So I would like to start with Dr. Somchat B.C. Chachan. about his point of view about the new entrepreneurial marketing, what he thinks about it, and how it has an impact or how can it actually change the future.
First of all, I think entrepreneurial marketing is what we need right now because we need to look at the world from a different perspective. We need to look at what we do from the marketing perspective, and we need to be able to satisfy different needs of the business. The word entrepreneurial marketing implies that we look at the opportunity. And how do we look at the opportunity? We need to have what we call the mindset. And what is the mindset that we are talking about? You know, when we talk about marketing, people think of the word planning. That is important. But planning alone will not take you to achieve what you're looking for. You also need what I would call the execution, the taking action. So the entrepreneurship requires that mindset, meaning you need to do it. So in today's world, you need to do things in parallel. Okay. When we talk about marketing in the old days, you can take back 10 years ago, 20 years ago, or even 30 years ago. We spend so much time on planning. And what does it mean? By the time you have the plan, you launch it, the market is gone. In the old days, we can wait for 3 years to have that good plan. Today, the world changed so fast. Look at COVID-19. Look at how we live our life not using cash. Even here in Bangladesh, it's just like that. So it doesn't take years for people who, walk on the street, not to use cash. So we talk about cash in society, just like that. It's because we have to. That without planning. So this is what's happening in today's world. Whether you want to change or whether you are forced to change, you have to change anyway. So what we mean by entrepreneurial marketing is that planning and also taking action take place in parallel. So you need that mindset. The mindset of a good planning. At the same time, you need to have that attitude of doing things fast. Okay, so I'll start with one word. As a marketing student, okay, as a marketing citizen, you need that mindset, which is basically risk-taking mindset. Okay, and you also need to plan well, but you have to be multitask. You have to be able to do both very well. And that's the challenge for us, for the smart citizen today. Okay, so I like to start with that.
Thank you. And I think also the changing mindset also comes from the society as well, because even countries like Bangladesh, and I think just 10 or 15 years ago, our parents were used to expect us to be work under an organization rather than creating a new business for them. But now the young generation are so risk-taking and they're doing kind of a very innovative and creative kinds of businesses while they're students. And people are now appreciating that entrepreneur can also be a profession, as well as the social influencers. So the dynamism of marketing is changing day by day. How we see the world, how the actually the products are placed. Everything is actually changing in very rapidly. Just before we talk about like what we used to do in pre-COVID and what we are now doing as post-COVID. So all the activities or the marketing strategies, everything is actually changed a lot because before pre-COVID, we never thought of going online and doing a full-time university classes is online or Google Meet, but now it's a possibility. So I think COVID is also a very good teacher for us, and we learned a lot of things during this period. So now I'd like to ask Mr. Shamim Ehsanul Haq sir about his view about, let's say, as he's in the teaching profession for a very long period of time. And so what do you think? Like, what could our young generation do to like kind of enhance their capabilities or how to enhance their creativity and capabilities, and how can they can become a better entrepreneur, or like as a faculties as we are, how can we groom them?
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Fabiha. Can you hear me clearly? Okay, great. So first and foremost, I'd like to welcome Professor Somchat Vizitchaichan to our school, to the university. So he has taken, the trouble to be here this evening, give us time. So please give him a big round of applause. We are really grateful to have visitors from Asia, particularly here. We sometimes find Americans coming here from the West, but we seldom find academics and practitioners coming from the Far East. So this is very special. So I'd like to start with what we experienced today, first and foremost, by hearing Professor Philip Kotler. And today is his 92nd or 93rd? 92nd birthday. 93. So it's 93rd birthday. So that's remarkable, right? 93rd birthday. It's a great age. He has reached a great age. But I was paying a lot of attention to what he said. And what was most assuring was that we were all listening to a sage, so to speak. Not only a marketing sage, but a philosopher who was looking at the world, looking at the past, and also looking at present, talking about the present, and thinking about the future, trying to envision a future for us where marketing will take a much more positive role, right? And companies will be taking a much more inclusive role, so to speak. And his voice was very reassuring. Yeah, this is not always the case when you listen to a professor or listen to someone of consequence. It's not always that you feel reassured and you feel comfortable listening to him, but that's the experience. I almost had a physical experience of being reassured, being comforted by what he had to tell us. So based on that, and based on also what Professor Somchat Vizichan said about planning and doing at the same time, as opposed to waiting for 3 years to really fine-tune the plan, come up with a complete plan, and then take action. World is changing at a very fast pace. You are all aware of that. Unfortunately, the lessons that COVID had taught us from 2020 and 2021 is that the world can really be transformed or dramatically changed for the worse before we really know what's happening around us. So this has been a huge lesson for not only for businesses but also people like you who are students. So having that lesson in mind, you need to understand that often action has to be taken quickly, but this action cannot really be a mindless action. You have to be responsible for your actions, and you have to understand what are the consequences of these actions. I have read a little bit of the entrepreneurial marketer. And what I understand that Professor Kotler and others who have worked on this vision essentially is trying to tell us that as consumers, as marketers, we have to take a much more proactive role. And this proactive role means doing things, but also being responsible being responsible for what we do, to understand the consequences of our action. For example, as consumers, what we consume, how we consume, have implications, social implications, have environmental implications, have economic implications. Our consumption practices can create social unrest. If you look at nations like Bangladesh, which are, just a couple of years ago, we were the least developed country and we're transitioning to a developing nation now. And nations like these are very prone to social turmoil, economic inequalities, and many other ills. And as young marketers or would-be future marketers, you need to be cognizant of those things. And this simply also means that you cannot really use the tools of 1967 or 1996 or even 2006 for that matter to address those issues that prevail now and will perhaps be more complicated in the future, which means you have to be more proactive, you have to take quick action, you need to look at sustainability, you need to look at well-being, you need to look at the environment, society, and it's not just about selling a product and making a profit anymore. Professor Kotler talked about stakeholders. Professor Kotler talked about farms of endearment. This I find really, really interesting. That one thing that struck me was that stakeholder capitalism was much better than shareholder capitalism. So that was something we are actually witnessing this sort of transition before our very eyes. Even companies in Bangladesh are being compelled to talk about the stakeholders. The ready-made garment sector here no longer talks about only exports, only how much they can extract in terms of manufacturing value or the making charge they can extract from Nike or Reebok or those famous brands. They talk about, now they are forced to talk about their health and safety of their workers, the workers' well-being. Now they are talking about they are seriously invested in green factories. I don't know if you are aware that Bangladesh has one of the largest number of green factories in the world, right? You know that it is home to the largest number of green ready-made factories in the world. So there have been significant progress has already been made, and all that really is a harbinger of better days for a nation like Bangladesh. And in that future, you as students of marketing students or future marketers will play a very vital and crucial role. You'll be marketing our products to the world, and also you'll be consuming the world's product over here, but you will do it much more responsibly, proactively, with an entrepreneurial mindset, and with not only the triple bottom line in mind, but perhaps much more than that. We'll think about the far-reaching consequences of becoming a marketer. So I think that's something to think about, and that's something that you'll be wise enough to take into consideration as you continue your studies and as you continue to learn and interact as a marketer. So thank you. I think that will be all from me.
Thank you, sir. So the entrepreneurial marketing, the book also talks about our 4 capabilities, which is creativity, innovation, entrepreneurship, and leadership. So my question to Dr. Somchat is, what do you think for the smart citizen, which of these components will be the most important one for the young professional? among creativity, innovation, entrepreneurship, and leadership?
Okay, I think they are all important, but I like to start with creativity. This is how I see what is going to happen. From the problem perspective, it's going to be more complicated. So when you graduate and when you become managers or become senior managers, you will be challenged by more complicated and more complex problems from consumers, from key stakeholders. So if you believe that you're going to be using what you learned from the uni and you hope that it will work, I will guarantee you, you will fail faster. Why do I say that? Because don't expect that you will be using the same approach for the same problems. Okay, I will repeat. Don't expect that you will be using the same tools for the same problem. And don't expect that you will be using the same process for the same problems. We need marketeers who are creative. So a lot of time you need to be able to come up with a different way of doing things. If you don't train yourself now to be flexible, to do things differently, you're gonna get stuck. Okay. One thing I admire Kotler is when he talks about future. You know, someone who is 93 and talks about future. And when he talks about Peter Drucker, who is guru in management, whereas Kotler is marketing guru. Okay? The best way to know about the future is to create it. Any idea what does it mean? You need to invent it. In other words, you need to start building one. A lot of marketing professionals out there, they're trying to plan, they're trying to target, they're trying to segment using what they learned from school. That's why they fail. Because things will be different. And this applies to what we talked about, smart economy. Bangladesh will not be the same in the next 5 years, in the next 2 years, even next year. And that is important. Okay. A lot of people trying to talk about, let's use social media. Let's talk about digital marketing. They are just the tools. They are not that important. But how you apply the tools, using creativity, that is different. That's what is count. Okay? So I like to, give you a different perspective. And if you understand what I'm trying to say, you will be fine. You will have what I would call, the term that Michael Porter will use. You will have an edge, a competitive edge that will differentiate you from the rest of, candidates. in the market. Because other people will just talk about what they know. You can have that. Okay, and this is what Kotler will use the term POP. You probably know well, right? Point of parity. You need to have your POD, point of difference, and you also turn that POD become your competitive advantage. Okay, and creativity is something that you could learn and practice. Okay, skills is based on your practice. Okay, and you need the mindset to take risks. So start from today. You don't have to wait for the perfect solution to arise. You just have to learn how to fail because it's okay to fail. Okay. A lot of students in my country or in my classroom, we laugh when we fail because the question we ask them, what have you learned? And the more they are able to share what they learn, we laugh about it. Why? Because the more they are able to share, the more they are smarter. We don't ask about, how did you do that? You're so good. We don't ask that kind of hopeless question anymore. Why? Because there's so many people can come up with the answer. Why? You can use ChatGPT, GPT. It's so easy to get good answers, but it's so difficult to get stupid answers with your smart reason why you got it wrong. Because it's experience. So experience marketing is different. Okay, so that's my perspective.
Thank you very much, Professor Somchat. This is Chai Chan. I have a question for you, and this is something that we'd like to answer. We'd like you to answer through the lens of your country lens, through the perspective of being a citizen, as a professor working in Thailand. As a nation, how are you preparing your future citizens, especially the youth, so that they can enhance your economy and shape your economy? What is your outlook on how your youth are going to shape your economy? Thank you.
This is like Miss Thailand Universe kind of question. All right. Seriously, it's still a long way to go. Okay. Fortunately, okay, Thailand is still, how do I put it? It's a sizable country where distribution of income, okay, and a lot of other things are not evenly distributed. So I didn't want you to get a picture, so I would try to generalize. Okay, so let me put it this way. Okay, let's look at Bangkok and urban student. Still, they are different from rural university student. Okay, but the urban student has the luxuries of the quality system. Okay, so take for example, quite a number of universities. The systems are well designed and integrated, so they have what I would call smart e-learning experience. So the whole thing is pretty much integrated. Let's say enrollment, let's say student advice, e-learning system, and also student affairs experience. They're all very advanced. Okay, but other part of the country are not. Okay, so it's still very difficult to answer that. Okay, but talk about for the urban part. Okay, we have what I would call the coaching system. Okay, so back in Thailand, they use a lot of what I would call mentoring system. So the senior help work with the junior student. So by doing that, it was more like the support system. Okay, so whether we're talking about activities, whether we talk about educational assistance, or whether we talk about emotional support, that is very helpful. Okay, so that's how they help one another.
Thank you very much, Professor Chen.
So
I don't have any more questions as of now. Yes, you did answer our question very well. So I'd like to hand it over to Fabiha.
okay. I think our session has come to an end. And thank you, participants, for joining us. But before we conclude, I would like to extend our heartfelt appreciation to the Asia Marketing Federation, the Marketing Society of Bangladesh, and Bangladesh Brand Forum for their efforts in organizing this event. We would also like to acknowledge our event sponsors and partners, supported by Here Now, Dasudit International University and Nobel, event partner France and Tasty Treat, strategic partner UCSI University Bangladesh Campus, technology partner Amra Technologies Limited, and PR partner Backstage PR. Let us embark on this journey of knowledge, inspiration, and celebration. I'd like to say good night to all of you. Thank you for being here with us and joining us in this auspicious event. And your participation made this event more special. Thank you, everyone. Have a good night. I think Paul started as well to take a picture. And also thanks to BRAC Business School and BUMA Business University Marketing Association Club for making this happen. Okay, thank you.
তোমার শুনতেই না সামনে একটু খালি ফটোগ্রাফ করে भैया हेलो भैया भैया সবাই একটু ক্লোজ আছে Thank you.
Thank you. Let's call it a night. Classes from tomorrow. There is flag prepared for you. That's why you take.
Guys, don't forget to want this cake. Cake and
Thank you. Thank you.
ID card check हो सके ना? काफी दाम
আস্তে আস্তে দেখুন কেন অসুবিধা বলেন না তার দাম ঠিক আছে নামকের দাম
Sorry. আপু কি সত্য হবে? আপু কি সত্য হবে? মাঝখান থেকে সরি।
না আমি সাত বছর